People love to start sentences with the phrase, "in an ideal world." It sounds noble, but from a strict structural standpoint, it's a trap. Look at the moral tensor. It tracks human action across two dimensions: vertical will, active energy, and horizontal benefit. When you say, "in an ideal world," you verbally unmoor yourself. You push into theoretical space, and your will metric drops to zero. At zero will, your capacity to generate physical action is suspended. You are waiting for conditions that do not exist before you agree to begin. The danger here is that when you refuse to actively define the boundaries of your own ideal, the system doesn't remain blank. Someone else builds the floor and the ceiling for you. You end up navigating inside parameters designed by and for someone else. Actual moral action requires a completely different vector. It demands an active exertion of energy, an upward push on that vertical axis, aimed directly at producing a tangible change for a specific target. If you want to move the needle, you must abandon philosophical daydreaming and treat your desired outcome as a mechanical engineering problem. The first step in this engineering process is throwing out the vague concept of an ideal world and replacing it with a concrete target effect. In this framework, a good effect is defined by the geometric expansion of future possibilities. You aren't just rearranging things, you are untangling a system to open more pathways than were available a moment ago. We calculate the power of this expansion using a specific equation. The total effect is the product of your actions multiplied by the intersection of your subjective and objective contexts squared. Think of the subjective context as your internal map. This is your theoretical understanding, your intent, and the language you use to frame the goal. The objective context is the external territory. This is empirical feedback, the laws of physics, and the lived friction of the real world. We square the result because an effect behaves like a geometric area. If your internal map and the external territory are the two sides of a rectangle, you achieve the maximum possible area only when those two sides are perfectly symmetric. If you have high intent, but zero grip on reality, one side of your rectangle is zero, and the total area of your effect vanishes. This is the fatal flaw of the pure idealist. Having massive intent without grounding it in physical reality mathematically reduces your total systemic impact to nothing. Once you have a balanced map, you have to identify the specific physical fuel required to drive the engine. We find that fuel by applying the law of necessity, a mathematical filter used to sort potential actions by their structural importance. The law defines a need as a prerequisite with no viable substitutes. Look at this flowchart. A need is structurally locked into the path. If you remove it, the goal fails instantly, regardless of how much effort you put into the other steps. A want, by contrast, is any action where substitutes exist. These are optional routes. They might be pleasant, but because you can bypass them, they lack the structural urgency required to force a system-wide change. Isolating these needs allows you to calculate the exact, unavoidable physical acts required to bridge the gap between where you are and the effect you want to create. Bypassing the optional wants and executing only the structurally locked needs is the most efficient way to force a desired outcome into existence. This shift changes how we view morality. It isn't a static label, it's a dynamic field state. An action is good because it functionally maintains the integrity and expansion of the system over time. A true agent doesn't just hold a belief. They constantly calculate and adjust their actions to stay in alignment with their target effect as the environment shifts. This is the functional validation threshold. If a sequence of actions works to build your defined ideal in reality without triggering systemic collapse, it is validated by the physics of the container. We measure the depth of this truth by its resonance. If a solution works in one room, it's a local convenience. But if that same action slots perfectly into every new context you test it against, its fractal depth increases. It is validated not by an opinion, but by its persistence across reality. Simply stating an ideal consumes no energy and produces no data. It has no depth because it has never been tested against friction.
The physical execution of a calculated need is the only mechanism that actually changes the geometric space of the world. Stop waiting for an ideal world to be handed to you. Define your target effect, calculate the necessary actions, and do the work.